Elena Howie, the Environmental Subcommittee of the League of Women Voters here for Roseville area, and we're really happy to bring this presentation to you tonight. Just a reminder that the League of Women Voters is a volunteer grassroots civic organization with over 100 years of experience educating, advocating, and working toward reform and making our democracy work for all. We always invite you to consider to join this civic-minded organization, and there's information at the back. As a reminder, we do not support any political candidates or parties, but we do encourage informed and active participation in government. It studies issues, informs positions at local, state, and national levels. And for many years, the League has been studying and advocating for environmental issues. Before we get going, just a reminder, shut your phone off. We always have that happen at some point, but we'll try and get that taken care of. So several of members on our subcommittee last spring were involved in gathering data for a watershed study that was done through the Council of Metropolitan Area Leagues, which is, or the Council of Metropolitan Area Leagues, which is a group of area metro leagues that come together. And we were so impressed by the amazing work and the coordination and that level of coordination involved by the watershed districts to improve and protect our water quality, that we wanted to elevate their work in our broader community. The administrators from the districts represented by our area league have graciously agreed to join us this evening to share some of the highlights of what they're up to and hopefully engage you in supporting their work. This evening's presentation is on Zoom. If all goes well, fingers crossed. Sorry if it doesn't, people. So the speakers will have to come to the podium. It'll be a little bit weird for the audience here, but we've done it before and it works out pretty fine. Questions can be asked in the chat online, and there are cards available to ask questions. So we'll kind of save those to the end. So just to make it easier and Rita's got some cards back there. Just put your hand up if you ever want a card. So for the next 50 minutes or so, these guys are going to share what they're up to, and then we'll do the questions after that. So I'm going to introduce our speakers. I'm going to go into a little more detail with Anna just because she came up first as an A. And knowing that they share the same kind of responsibilities. So it isn't that any of them don't do these other things, even though it's a shorter intro. Okay, so Anna Illyria is the administrator of Capital Region Watershed District, a special purpose local government unit dedicated to integrating land and water resource management efforts within its 40 square mile boundaries to protect the Mississippi River and district lakes and wetlands. Ms. Illyria leads the district in implementing its policies, programs, and projects approved by the Board of Managers. She guides the development of strategic watershed management planning. You need to be closer to the mic. This one? For what? For which?
That one's for the room, and the other one is for the room.
For the room? Sorry. Okay. I'm trying not to block out the Zoom thing if I don't know where I'm at in that thing, but anyway. So she guides the development of the strategic watershed management planning and annual work planning and budgeting. She works to establish and foster strong public and private partnerships to achieve the district's goals and priorities. Lastly, she oversees the management of 25 permanent staff and operations of the district office in the Hamlin Midway neighborhood of St. Paul. She has an MS degree in water resources engineering from Tufts University and a BS in natural resources and environmental studies from the University of Minnesota. That's Anna in the middle. Tina Karstens has been with the Ramsey-Washington Metro Watershed District Administrator for the past 10 years, leading a staff of 18 to manage 20 lakes, 5 streams, and over 1,000 wetlands in the 65 square mile watershed that ultimately drains into the Mississippi. Tina has a Bachelor of Science in Geoenvironmental Engineering from the University of Minnesota. And lastly, Nick is the administrator of the Rice Creek Watershed District. He manages 18 permanent district staff, operations, and represents the district's interests in the community. He's a BA degree in local and urban affairs from St. Cloud State and holds certifications in flood plan as a flood plan manager as well as a wetland delineator. So welcome, the three of you. I think, Nick, you're going to start? Yeah, welcome.
Well, thank you very much for having us all. Appreciate the warm introduction. Again, I'm Nick Tomczak. I'm the administrator for Rice Creek. We will start off with what the heck is a watershed district, and go from there. So we'll start with what is a watershed, and this is environmental. So you can see my laser pointer on the screen. So a watershed is an area that all drains to a common outlet. So on the screen, you'll see this dotted line, kind of the top of the hill and back around these mountains and back around in a raindrop or an event that would occur on the landscape. All of this area would drain to a common outlet. And in the image, it's kind of the front of the screen here. So rain that falls on this side of the line has much more to do with rain over here than it does just across to the other side. And so we manage on those basis. When we take that natural environment and from there, there's the overlaying of the parcel layer. All of you know of the taxation and the parcels that you have. And so at the fringes, if 50% of your parcel drains in a specific direction, you're in that watershed, or maybe you're in the one on the other side. So we have to blur the line a little bit when it gets into those nitty-gritty areas. In 1982, the state decided to pass the Metropolitan Area Surface Water Management Act. This statute requires that all of the metropolitan area needs to have a be managed or have a membership in a water management organization. So all of the 7-county metro area has management in one of 3 ways. It's either through a joint powers agreement between the cities and the townships within the watershed, a watershed district itself, or it can be a function of county government. So you can see Ramsey County right here, and I will advance and make it a little closer for those 2 types of watershed management organizations within Ramsey County. You'll see Rice Creek up here on the top, Capital Region, and then Ramsey-Washington as well. These are watershed districts. They're authorized to be, whereas watershed management organizations, which is the Badness area, is a joint powers board authorized under 103B, just a different state statute. So here we are at the start of our presentation with the different organizations that are present tonight. Leading us off tonight will be Anna.
Thank you, Nick. Thanks for the introduction and a little background information about watershed organizations and watershed government in Minnesota. I'm originally from Minnesota, but you heard I went to Tufts University in Boston, Massachusetts, and I worked for a nonprofit organization out there for 12 years. And at the time, nonprofit, there was no formal governance in Massachusetts. And I remember meeting a city staff member in the Boston area, and she commented, God, I wish you guys had more power as a nonprofit watershed organization. And then lo and behold, when it was time to come back to Minnesota, I was thrilled to see that the state has taken the lead in recognizing that the best way to manage our water resources is through watershed boundaries and not political boundaries, because water, will flow where it wants to flow naturally, as well as the way we've designed it, man-made with underground storm sewer systems. So thank you to the League of Women Voters for giving us this forum to present tonight. As you heard, Capital Region Watershed District is actually the smallest of the 3 watershed districts here tonight. We're 40 square mile watershed organization that has 5 cities within our boundaries. 85% of our watershed district is made up of the city of St. Paul. That's the majority. To the north, though, that's where the other cities come in. And there is, let me see here, let me use my mouse. This black line shows the city boundaries, city of St. Paul down there. But from west to east, you have a little bit of Lauderdale in Capital Region, all of Falcon Heights, so that includes the Minnesota State Fair, as well as part of the University of Minnesota St. Paul campus. You've got Roseville, also that makes up only 7.5% of our watershed district, so that really entails 3 square miles out of our 40 square mile watershed area. And then in the northeast corner, a portion of the city of Maplewood. We have over 250,000 people within our watershed boundaries. I like to say we're also one of the most diverse in various ways of the watershed organizations because of the city of St. Paul at the heart of our watershed. We're also highly urbanized watershed, fully developed, right? And that's one of our biggest issues we have to deal with, is this built environment, knowing that water, the rain that falls onto the ground isn't going to naturally soak in and replenish our groundwater resources and feed our lakes and streams and wetlands areas. So how do you deal with that polluted runoff? And beneath the ground, we have transformed, we've buried our streams, filled our wetlands, and put the water in over 500 miles of storm sewers that all drain to the Mississippi River that serve as a 13-mile boundary. We do have 5 lakes in the watershed district, 4 in St. Paul, Como Lake, Loeb Lake, and then Crosby Lakes in the southern portion of our watershed district. And then the only lake in the city of Roseville within CRWD is Lake McCarran. So I'll be talking about that a lot tonight, since this is being put on by the Roseville chapter. So that's a bit of what is Capital Region Watershed District geographically, both the land and the water resources. As far as our organization, you've heard that watershed districts are governed by board of managers. We have 5 of them in CRWD that are appointed by the Ramsey County Commissioner for 3-year terms. 2 of our watershed managers presented here live in the city of Roseville. So that's important, aspect or consideration when it comes to appointing board of managers. Do they represent the different geographic areas? As you heard in my bio, I oversee 25 staff at the watershed organization. I'll be talking about the different types of work they do, but they do come with, it's a multidisciplinary team. In the organization, we rely on a large number of volunteers, most namely our community advisory committee members, to help guide the work and provide the community's perspective to our board of managers as they've set policy and direction for the organization. We also have a group of Minnesota water stewards at CRWD. We've got a couple here too that are representing Ramsey-Washington Watershed District. Thank you for your volunteer work. And then also a lot of community partners, because 25 staff and a board is not enough to do the work within our organization. You'll hear this from my colleagues at the other watershed districts, we are required to develop 10-year watershed management plans that provide the roadmap for our work. They assess the current conditions of the land and water in the watershed. And then from there, you identify what are your priority issues that need to be addressed in that 10-year framework. How are you going to what are going to be your goals that are measurable to address those priority issues? And then what's your implementation activities? What work are you going to do, programs and projects over those 10 years? We're close to the midway through the district's 10-year watershed management plan that is available on our website. Our work, there's no need to read this organizational chart, but I just put it in there because it shows the buckets of our work at the Watershed District. We, I'd like to start from right and moving to the left. Because we don't own a lot of land. We rely on the community to become stakeholders, to care for their land and their water. So we have a pretty robust communications and engagement program at the Watershed District. We also do a lot of planning, both at the larger watershed level and then smaller scales, going down from sub-watershed to neighborhood to site-specific planning, and carry out a number of projects and offer cost share grants to our residents, other property owners, to implement clean water practices like rain gardens, permeable pavement and cisterns. We have an admin division that I oversee to make sure the lights stay on, people get paid, and people have the tools to do their work. We also, while we use the carrot approach to prod people to use rainwater as a resource and adopt clean water practices, we recognize, we need to create a sense of rules for redevelopment projects that disturb more than an acre or more of landscape. So we have a watershed rules and a regulatory program to carry that out. We do a lot of monitoring and research in our watershed district to focus where we have pollutant hotspots, where to implement projects. And then with all the projects we construct, and to date, we have 2,000 clean water projects that have been built by ourselves, by our partners, by the residents, by developers. There's a lot of operation, inspection, and maintenance that have to be a part of it. So we just recently created a facility management division at the district. We were asked to, what are the main challenges today for watershed districts? We've been around for 25 years. I mentioned the built environment being a big issue because water doesn't soak into the ground. But I think it's worth highlighting the fact that it's changing climate. That is really at our doorstep here, and what we need to better understand the impacts of, the warming of winters and night times, how more frequent and intense storm events affect what's on the land and what's happening to the health of our water bodies and our natural resources. And also, while we do get more frequent extreme precipitation events, we also have on the other end of the side longer periods of drought. And this chart just is a 15-year record of annual rainfall in CRWD. We have a number of precipitation gauges. That red line shows the 30-year normal total precipitation. Those blue bars represent a year going back to 2010 on the left-hand side, and then 2024 to the right. And as you can see, it goes up and down, but over the past 5 years, those first 3 years, we were in a prolonged drought, and things have returned to normal, but there's some caveats with that, because we're not necessarily getting the rain when we want it most, which is during the growing season. In the interest of time, I'm just, here just some quick stats about the changing climate. one of my staff recently gave a presentation with this, but I always find these things interesting. We had the warmest winter on record statewide, with January and February having some record-setting days that you can read here. But then then we shifted to a very wet June. I think, what's most notable of that, it was the 5th wettest June on record across the state. And what's really interesting with that, we got a lot of precipitation there, but we didn't have a lot of snowfall, so the timing of that was interesting. Then we went into the warmest and driest fall on record. So, it's a boom or bust, it feels like today. This next slide just shows, we take climate precipitation, we take our monitoring data, both of water quality and quantity, of our streams, of our lakes, as well as in our storm sewers, and then some land data to model what conditions are like across the landscape over different rainfall events, and help identify areas of most concern from a water quantity and water quality standpoint, and then look at opportunities for better planning on where to put clean water projects. So this is just a map that breaks down the different subwatersheds, storm sewers, and where to focus some of our work. Oops, my apologies. I hit return twice here. Going back one slide. So I'm just gonna, we've been around 25 years. There's a lot of work we do, but I wanna hone in on what we're doing in the Roseville area of our watershed district. As I mentioned, Lake McCarran's is the only lake in the Roseville area of CRWD. It also happens to be the cleanest of our 5 lakes. It's the only one that is swimmable and fishable. We've been monitoring this lake for over 25 years, and we found that it continues to meet the state water quality standards for a deep water lake. So that is great news regarding Lake McCarran's, but there's a lot we still need to do to make sure we protect its high water quality. Some of the pollutants of most concern within that lake is phosphorus, that nutrient that can originate from de-icing agents, fertilizers, and it's the pollutant that adheres to sediment. So reducing the amount of sediment getting into that lake is really important. And then I also added chloride, that material that's found in de-icing agents. That's also something we're very concerned about. Some of the main reasons why Lake McCarran's is really clean is the fact that in partnership with Ramsey County, we conducted an in-lake alum treatment to minimize the amount of phosphorus loading that's happening within the lake, that's coming from the sediments in the lake. That was done in 2004, and it's proven to be lasting and effective. We will need to evaluate if we need to do another alum treatment here in the next 5 years or so. And then lastly, there's, we have been focused on this lake for a number of years and implemented a number of small to large scale clean water projects with a number of partners to treat over 75% of the area or the watershed draining to Lake McCarran's, which is 1,000 acres in size. So just to highlight a few projects that we've completed over a number of years. The first one I want to highlight is the Upper Villa Park Stormwater Management Project that's located right off of Dale Street. It's next to Beedale Club. I'm getting a lot of nods in the room. How many of you knew that there is large size concrete cistern and 10-foot diameter pipes underneath the ball fields there? Was anyone aware of that? Nope. Yeah, well, there is. And we can, which we are collecting 250 acres of runoff outside of the park and bringing it into this park. It first gets directed to those that concrete cistern structure seen in the left-hand photo. It gets filtered and then gets pumped out to irrigate the ball fields as needed. If this reaches capacity and there isn't demand for irrigation, the water is directed to the 10-foot pipes representing the photo in the middle there. And then it infiltrates. It's a perforated pipe as well. So it's both a rainwater reuse and infiltration system. And this is all located upstream of Villa Wetlands before Villa Park Wetlands discharges into or flows to Lake McCarran's. We've estimated that we've reduced phosphorus by 50 pounds with this system on an annual basis, and we're saving up to 1.1 million gallons of drinking water per year by reusing rainwater and using it as a resource. The second project I want to highlight is a more recent one. This was completed in 2020 at Parkview Center School, so not too far from the Upper Villa project. We installed, again, large 10-foot diameter pipes at the sledding hill. Maybe some of you are familiar, at, right next to the school, to get collect runoff from County Road B and the adjacent neighborhoods and filter the water. Unfortunately, the soils are not conducive and groundwater levels are too high, so we can't infiltrate the water, but at least we can clean it before it gets redirected back into the storm sewer. So with this project, we've got 53 filters and 12.5 million gallons annually are getting treated. So that is the Parkview Center School. There's a number of other things we did, but I just want to point out we dredged. I mentioned the Villa Park wetlands. We dredged the wetlands there in 2013 and removed nearly 20,000 cubic yards of sediment from the bottom of the wetlands to create more capacity and treat more water flowing to Villa Park wetlands. We've also been working with the residents along Como Lake to assess their shorelines and identify opportunities for transforming it from, you know, an eroded, maybe predominantly turf, you know, edge at the, to Lake McCarran's to something of native vegetation like you see here in the photograph. This is a photograph of over by the point on Lake McCarran's, if you're familiar with that. And then we work with Ramsey County Public Works to implement curb cut rain gardens, you know, especially when they're working on street reconstruction projects. So that's that. So what is ahead for the district? And this is more of a broader look, but we are working, we talked about climate change and what the data is showing us. So we've decided we need a watershed specific climate resiliency plan. We are drawing from the county's plan, the city's plans, and the state plans, but we want one of our own. We're also working on a chloride pollution prevention plan, knowing it's becoming more and more of concern. And then we are looking at ways to make improvements to some existing infrastructure like Godfrey's Pit, and then see where we can mitigate some flooding issues. With that, I do have one more side. You know, how can you help out? What can you do to help? There are a number of ways to volunteer at the Watershed District. They're similar to what my colleagues offer, and we've got some events too. You can adopt a storm drain, which celebrated its 10-year anniversary last November. I think we've got upwards of a couple thousand people in our Watershed District who've adopted storm drains, participate in our stewardship grant program where we can offer you technical and financial assistance for implementing clean water projects at your own site, at your school, in your neighborhood. consider joining our advisory committee meeting. I mentioned the plans we're working on. We'll be releasing some draft plans and seeking community input. And then we've got this art and water workshop coming up on May 11th, which will be held at CRWD's office. We have a watershed artist in residence who's helping us, help translate some really sometimes technical scientific concepts to something that is more relatable, more interesting. So encourage you to come to our office. And then all that is available on our website. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tina.
Hello, everyone. It's good to see such a full room, and who's ever online, welcome as well. Good to see you. This is fun to be able to do this with Nick and Anna. You'll hear a lot of similarities in the work we do. And it's really key that we have great partners and collaborators with our neighbors and actually watersheds throughout the state. So it's really great to be here and talk with you all together. So, Anna comes from a very developed urban watershed. Ramsey-Washington metro gets a little less urban and a little more suburban, and then Nick's gets even a little more out in a little more rural areas too. So we kind of get a good mix here from all of us. So as Anna started, I'll also point out some just geography here. Ramsey-Washington is about 65 square miles, and we cover 12 different cities or parts of 12 different cities. Lots of good community partnerships that we have, and we're part of 2 different counties. So we have about 80% of our watershed is in Ramsey County and about 20% is in Washington County. So when Anna showed her board of managers, they were all from Ramsey County. My 5 board managers, 4 of them are from Ramsey County and 1 is from Washington County. So they make sure they split that evenly as well. We are, see if I can get that pointer, whoops. Here we are over here in Roseville. And then we come up and we have Shoreview. And what's interesting about the drainage flow here is a drop of water that would fall, let's say at Bennett Lake in Roseville here, will travel all the way through Owasso up to Grass, actually into West Vadnais, which is not even technically in our watershed, back into our watershed and into Jarvis, Keller, Phelan, and then it goes into a storm sewer system that was built about 100 years ago and goes all the way under to the Mississippi River, kind of right in this area here. So it has the longest flow path is from Roseville all the way around for sure. So we have 3 outlets to the Mississippi River. The one I just mentioned that comes through what we call our Beltline storm sewer system that comes directly out of Lake Phelan. And then this is Battle Creek here. If you've been to Battle Creek Regional Park in St. Paul and Maplewood areas, there is an outlet to the Mississippi from Battle Creek. And then down here, kind of blocked a little bit by the words, but it's Fish Creek, and that's our 3rd outlet to the Mississippi River. We were established in 1975, so this is our 50th anniversary, and I'm going to share a little bit about what we have planned this year for that anniversary as well. We also have 18 staff, like Nick mentioned, plus volunteers, which I'm seeing a few in the room here. If you volunteered or been part of Ramsey-Washington Metro in one way, shape, or form, can you raise your hand just so I can get feeling? Yes, good to see you. Thanks for being here. It's great to have you here, because that is really key, integral to our success and our abilities to get our job done is to partner with our communities. So it's great to have you here. Anna went into a lot of details and to look at like the staff structure, or not our staff structure, our program structure, and we have a very similar structure. So I didn't want to duplicate that information, but I did want to talk about the priorities that we have. Mitigating flood risk is one of our top priorities. As Anna showed, the change in climate, you know, one thing that was apparent is that we're going to have extremes, right? It's going to be one extreme or the other, and mitigating flood risk is at the top of that list. So we've done, you know, a number of studies and have started to implement projects that help to alleviate flood risk to habitable structures like your homes or your businesses. So that is, we have a lot of information on our website for all of this. So if you're interested in a particular topic, let me know and I can direct you in the right location. Quality surface water. Water quality is also a top goal. Those top two, flood risk and water quality, I would say are our top two priorities. You know, Anna mentioned chloride reduction. That is certainly an issue and something that we're trying to make plans for addressing. I'll talk in a little bit about our watershed management plan update, our 10-year strategic plan update that will look to really start to address that issue as well as PFAS. If you're familiar with that, forever chemical, that is something that might not be a lot we can do, but we can monitor and do some natural resources restoration work to help, I guess, alleviate some of the pain from the damages done from PFAS. Healthy ecosystems. We've spent a lot of time on ecological restoration work in our watershed, adjacent to our water bodies, as well as connecting corridors across our watershed. We'll talk a little bit about that coming up as well. And then community and education and engagement. Our watershed management plan is, we were last in 2017, so we're due again in 2027. That's a multi-year process. So now we're starting our public engagement this year. And so there's going to be a lot of opportunities for you to be involved. I'd ask you to go to our website and sign up to be on our newsletter so that you can keep up with our engagement process for that. But our management plan outlines what our current conditions are in the watershed. It helps set our goals and priorities for the next 10 years. It's future thinking, but also real solid implementation strategies. So we'll be working on that coming up. One of the focuses of our watershed is looking at wetland management. We realize, first of all, that we've lost, you know, over 50% of our wetlands due to development in our watershed. We have a real strict policy goal of no net loss for future. So if a developer comes in and wants to impact a wetland, there are some regulations that allow for some impact, but our board is saying no net loss. So we want to make sure that we're replacing or not losing those wetlands. And then the ones that we do have, we monitor, and there's rating scale systems that we check on the quality of those wetlands. And when we find degraded wetlands, we have made plans to start to do restorations of those. So in this case, this is in Shoreview, but just not too far up near St. Odelia's church. It's called Cottage Place Wetland. It's a large wetland system. You can see the pink line is the historic wetland area, which it's pretty close, but there are a few homes in its way, but it was a dumping ground for years and years and years. And so we've gone in and removed a lot of debris, a lot of invasive vegetation, and we'll be planting that to make it a better amenity for the neighborhood and for the city, as well as cleaning up stormwater. Wetlands are like the best sponge and filter that we can have for our stormwater. It's also a great location because the St. Odelia's school is nearby, and they already were accessing a trail that was nearby there. And now we'll have a better educational opportunity for them in there as well. Talking more about natural resources restoration, ecological restoration projects, the Lake Owasso shoreline along North Owasso Boulevard has been a big project and a good partnership with both the county and the city. We've done the whole public boat launch and the south end, or I'm sorry, the north end of that lake. And you can see here's a picture of the results. It's beautiful, and it was preceded by the city and county working on the road construction project and the park improvements to that area. So it's just such a better user experience for the lake and for the park users. As a follow-up to that, what we've done on Owasso and on a few other lakes in our watershed is offered assistance to do a similar project on private property. So for people that lived on Lake Owasso or live on Lake Owasso, we would offer to do a similar restoration work. And we did about, I want to say 20 properties on the south end of the lake, and we're working our way around to the Roseville side as well. Anna mentioned too, like weather stations and keeping track of rainfall. One of the things we offer on our website that might be of interest to you if you're like data and like just to keep up on how things are going. We have lake level stations on all of our major lake systems, including Owasso, Wabasso. We have one that would measure Grass Lake, Snail Lake, Bennett as well. You can go on the website and see what the water level elevation is. And we're going to be also adding the rainfall records to this graph as well in the near future. So you'll kind of get a firsthand view of how a lake might react to rainfall. And each lake is going to be different depending on a lot of different factors, whether it's groundwater influenced, how big the watershed is, if it has an outlet or what size that outlet is. A lot of things will make a difference for that. But from here, you might just see that relationship, right? So it's important to understand how a lake system reacts to rainfall over time. So it's been a good tool for people, not just that live on the lake, but that might recreate on it, people that are just interested in science and data. And if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to talk more about that with you as well. But one of the notes that we put up here was about comparison between lakes. So it's really good to look at one lake and view the change over time. And you can do that you can scale the time. So if you want to look at a week, a month, a year, 3 years, you can see the change over time. But it doesn't really relate lake to lake. Like you can't say, well, this lake did this and this lake did that. It doesn't, because of all those different circumstances that I mentioned. Waterfest. So I'm moving into some of our community engagement events we have coming up. Has anybody been to Waterfest before? Oh, good. Yes, a few. Great. It's a community festival event that we've held for 28 years, I want to say now, 26 years. It's always held the Saturday after after Memorial Day, excuse me, at Lake Phalen. And it's a pretty significantly sized event where we have vendors, educational activities, art activities. You can get out on the water on boat rides. You can maybe try fishing if you haven't fished, or even if you have. Usually we have a fishing contest, and we have some like learn to fish events for the kids. We have dance and music performances. The bounce house for some reason is a huge hit, so we'll never lose the bounce house. Face painting and more. I mean, it's just a really fun day, and it's rain or shine. It almost always rains, but but we still have fun. We always say that it's like it makes sense that it would rain on Waterfest Day. So. The other event, this is kind of to celebrate this 50th anniversary, is we're going to be holding a Watershed Week in August. We're doing it the same week as National Night Out, so that is one of our events, is to host a National Night Out event. But we're also going to be doing a Phalen Chain bike tour that we'll be hosting. Trivia at Big Woods Brewing, which is in Vadnais Heights area, not too far from our office. And a Tanner's Lake Fishing Day. So we're trying to spread events out throughout the watershed, and have a day each week. We also have our board meeting that week. We didn't put that on the list, but you are always welcome to attend a board meeting as well. But looking forward to that, and there'll definitely be more information about those events coming up soon. And then our 50th anniversary events. So it's going to be a big year for us. We'll be hosting an event at our office. Our office is in Little Canada, right across from Little Canada City Hall. So Little Canada Road and 35E. We're going to be doing a lot of activities, informational displays. We are going to have an artist-led activity as well. And then we've been doing some really digging into history. I've been with the Watershed about 23 years, but there's 27 years before me. But we have a lot of long history. Our past administrator, who was our first employee at the Watershed, is still on our CAC, so he has provided a lot of background, but it's been fun to really reflect on how the Watershed has changed, how our priorities have changed, projects, our programs, how our staff has changed, communities have changed. So it's been fun, and we look forward to sharing that with others as well. So that's in September. Again, more information coming, but as I mentioned, our website has a wealth of information. We love our acronyms. RWMWD rolls right off the tongue. So that's our website, as well as my email or office email and number there as well. Always happy to talk more about the work we're doing. So I'll pass it over to Nick now.
All right, well, thank you very much, Tina. Rice Creek Watershed District. Again, I'm Nick Tomczak. I am the administrator for Rice Creek. That occurred in the fall of 2019. I joined Rice Creek in 2008. I was the permit coordinator at that time. I had come from Benton County up near St. Cloud. Foley is the county seat, worked in the Department of Development and did subdivision of property and wetland delineation and solid waste management and a number of other things. So Rice Creek recently had its 50th anniversary. A couple items here. We were established January 18th, 1972. You'll see the newspaper article on the left there recognizing our establishment. Interestingly, it says we have 201 square miles. Actually, after today's technology, we're a little bit smaller than that. And on the right, maybe you've seen this before, but that is a picture of the League of Women Voters at the time, which played a big role in the establishment of Rice Creek. That is dated September 29th, 1971. It speaks about a tour of the watershed that they're going to be undertaking in support of its establishment. So there's that 186 square miles. We are in 4 different counties. We're in Anoka, Hennepin, Ramsey-Washington. We have 28 cities and townships. I say that excitedly for all the coordination that we have with those municipalities. Our mission is to manage and protect the water resources of the district through flood control and water quality projects and programs. That is from our watershed management plan, which is due in 2029. It's kind of covered up on the screen there. The district generally drains, there's my pointer, down here from the Roseville area up through Fridley and out to the Mississippi River is our outlet. We only have one outlet. And then all the way from White Bear Lake, this all kind of circles around through the chain of lakes and comes down and out all through Rice Creek. Those blue lines on the map are public drainage systems. That was our late 1800s, early 1900s work to drain the land, rid the area of pestilence and disease, hopefully, maybe bury the Russians in wheat and some of those different kind of things. It is marginally effective. Most of the watershed is very flat and low. We have a lot of wetlands in Rice Creek. Whoops. I am having mouse challenges here to get some grip. All right, can I just do this? There we go. Similar to my Tina and Anna, Rice Creek has a number of different programs where we work to achieve those goals. We monitor the surface waters for volume and the quality that they exhibit. So all the lakes and streams, we do that individually. We do a number of them. We work through the CAMP program, which is a citizen group that works through Met Council to monitor lakes and volunteer that way. And we provide out all that data to help projects get taken care of. Drainage, which I had mentioned, is a big part of the district. Our board has a large interest in fulfilling its obligation to maintain those public drainage systems. They were established on the landscape. The landowners at those times were paid what are called damages for the establishment on the landscape. We are not the owner, we are the custodian by law. And so we are obligated to maintain it to that functional profile that was historically established. That can have a lot of controversy with it. And again, it's, I'll say, marginally effective at turning wetland into upland. And I think some of our good citizens are have higher expectations of it than it's physically capable of doing. Regulatory and inspections, as kind of noted, we are on the urban fringe, so we have the best of both worlds. We have the sins of the past, right? Development without any of this modern water management thinking, but also undeveloped farmland and people who are looking at their property and saying, hey, this is my retirement, and God bless them, that's fine. We have rules in place to have them manage the impervious surface that they create. The water runs off and is managed on their site before it leaves the property line. We have outreach and communication. We want all this good information to move out to the citizens and those interested parties. We want them to engage with us on all our good work. Through that, we have a number of grant programs, 3 different ones that I'll cover a little bit more here in a bit to help us influence and advance a culture of environment and water resources. A couple of Roseville success projects here, similar to my 2 companions here. We have a couple in Roseville. The one on the left is at C2 and Simpson. It is an underground infiltration system. It's a grant project that the district worked with the city of Roseville on. The district contributed $100,000 through our grant program for that to be established. Again, it's for the storage of water and then for it to infiltrate as best possible on there. On the right, we have Oasis Pond. It's iron enhanced sand filter just to the, want to call it Territorial Road, just to the west of Snelling, I believe. But this sand filter pulls water out of the ditch system in the pond. It is treated through enhanced sand that has iron filings in it. This pulls phosphorus that is dissolved in the water out of it to rid it of that pollutant, and then it's returned back into the system. This is just an illustration of the number of water quality grants we have. On the left-hand side, you'll see that. The district does budget annually for that. The water quality grant, we have $250,000 that's annually budgeted for property owners to come, a maximum payout of $10,000 for projects. These might be curb cut rain gardens, could be a shoreline restoration, this type of thing. On the right-hand side, we have our stormwater management grant. Those are typically with larger property owners, such as a university We're a municipality. There we budget $300,000 a year. Maximum grant there is $100,000. We also have what we call a mini grant. We allocate $20,000 a year for that. Maximum grant of $500,000 or $500, which could be for native plantings in your yard, rain barrels, this type of thing. Lots of them, so please don't hesitate to engage us on those opportunities. What's ahead, or what's the focus for Rice Creek? Flooding, it's in our mission statement. As we've all kind of touched on here, the intensity of our storms is increasing. The 100-year event, or the critical event that we measure to, is increasing. And the district has received a number of different grants where we take an engineer's model, all the inputs of where the water flows, the volumes that fall on the landscape, and crunch the numbers and looks at what happens on the landscape. And we look to identify places that we might put projects in place that are helpful to prevent the flooding in different locations. Long Lake, for example, has a long history of flooding. In those complications are ever so present with climate change. So challenges with flood mitigation. Certainly it threatens our homes, businesses, roadways like I-35W, a little bit more of that in a moment. So with the more frequent events, we're working to have proactive flood mitigation is essential. Jones Lake is a solution for the district. Yes, right here, maybe you saw it. Jones Lake, you would drive past and maybe not see it as much of a lake. It's cattail fringed. It's received stormwater for years and years. The public drainage system, those blue lines, have deposited sediment year after year, sand material into it, and slowly diminished its capacity to hold water. This area of Ramsey County ditches 2, 3, and 5 were the site of a good amount of flooding. Let's move on here. In 2011, you may recall the superstorm. We had a lot of cars up to their roofs in water. That resulted in a number of flood studies as to what we were going to do about that. And the cities of Roseville, New Brighton, and St. Anthony Village came to Rice Creek Watershed District as a local unit of government that spanned across the entire area. This is where our boundaries make good sense, right? Because those cities would have had to cooperate in an unusual fashion, where we studied across their boundaries and were able to support them. So they petitioned us and they said, hey, we got all this flooding. What are you going to do about it? Make it better for us. That resulted in a comprehensive stormwater management and flood plan, and a suite of projects. So what we're looking at doing, or we are well into and underway, is replumbing to correct the sins of the past. When a culvert was placed on the landscape, it wasn't maybe placed with that holistic view of how it may impact the neighbors and that sort of thing. So with that project, or those projects, we've had a number of them. Hanson Park in New Brighton, we've excavated out on the ditch system a large wetland area that had received a lot of that sediment. You put a water control structure in there to allow the system to bounce up and hold the rainwater in locations. You create vessels to hold the water before it's metered out and discharged downstream. This Jones Lake project, which is the next on our horizon, these are 10 projects that we've identified within that plan. The light green circles are locations where the city's identified flooding on the landscape. and it may be a key intersection where the storm sewer system backs up or is unable to hold that capacity. And the red circles identify proposed projects on the landscape. Like I said, the next one we're working on is the one at Jones Lake. We're moving our plans along to implement it. In that location, there was a past water control structure on Jones Lake in the 70s. It's about 11 square miles drain into this. About 40,000 people live in the vicinity, and about half of the area is impervious surface. So it's largely unmanaged. Again, that's the sins of the past. They don't have stormwater ponds around these locations. Thanks for your patience. What you're not seeing is some of the notes that I wanted to share off the screen, and the mouse is not letting me move down, but we'll move through here. So you see the hatching on the screen is Minnesota Pollution Control Area environmental justice areas of concern. These are folks that by their annual income or their the languages that they speak are more vulnerable. So we know that this area, these good folks live there, which can be an important component of the work that we do. The orange circles are the Hanson Park project that I noted previously, and also Mere Pond. Those are both storage vessels, if you will, places where we want to hold more water. And once we get Jones Lake, and we'll be able to further make some of the connections of the storm sewer system or various culverts that will need to be lowered to address and move the water to the vessels to hold it. You'll notice that a lot of the headwaters coming from the shopping mall and moving through Roseville, that flows to the north up to Jones Lake. So in order to alleviate flooding in Roseville, our partner, we need to create the vessel where nature has provided it, if you will, or there's a good opportunity to do it, and then dredge Jones Lake. Next steps, we're working on securing funding. Currently, we have House File 204, which is chief author is Representative Gottfried. And we also have Representative Feist, Mueller, Curran, and Verning, who have all signed on to the bill as well. We have a companion bill in the Senate. That's Senate File 1358. That's chief author, Senator Kunish. We certainly welcome your support. We're asking for $7.8 million. The year before, we asked for $7 million. This is the inflation factor that happens as projects wait to be funded. We do have a budget of about $8.5 million annually. We like to keep our pendulum straight on and not have big swings, increases on the parcels of your taxation and such. And so this is beyond the capacity of the Watershed District to fund on its own. And so we're going to the state and asking them to include us in the bonding bill so that we can begin excavation. Why should you care about Rice Creek and stormwater management? I think we've all made good points about how it protects and improves the water resources and water quality. You don't know what you have until you lose it. Again, I think Rice Creek's a good example of, we have some very pristine, nice lakes in the northern portion up by Forest Lake, City of Columbus, City of Hugo, and we run into that urban fringe, and then we start to see where we've regulated new development. They have the stormwater ponds and the responsibility to manage the runoff, and then down into the fully developed areas. We're working to reduce that flooding. We're looking for where individual developments and their discharge collide on the landscape and how we can prevent that from happening. Certainly supporting healthy lakes and wildlife. We have, like I said, a number of grants and cost share programs to help move culture, if you will, to incentivize these good works that you might want to take up on your own property. Mentioned us regulating the development, and certainly having a good place to work and live is important for the values that we hold and the actual value of the property that we have. There we go. Questions?
So our first question is, what is alum treatment on Lake McCarran's? Gotta come over here, sorry.
My apologies for throwing out a technical term like alum and not explaining it. It's work in progress when you've got a technical background, but you know, alum is it is a product. It's safe to put in the environment. It is made of aluminum, and it actually binds to the sediment to hold phosphorus in, so it doesn't get released by, you know, lake processes into the water column. So that's a simple definition of it without getting any further technically. I don't know if Tina, what? Into chemistry, right? Yeah. What is it?
I mean, I've sat in presentations that explain what the molecule looks like, but I couldn't repeat it. But yeah, basically it just like coats the bottom of the lake. And so it doesn't allow the phosphorus to get back into the water. So it keeps it sealed, let's say, in the bottom. So Anna mentioned that the one in McCarran's was done in 2004. And, you know, as we monitor that over the years to see if we see that those phosphorus numbers start to creep up, that might be a sign that we need another application. So in Coleman Lake in Maplewood, we're doing another application after 13 years of treatment on that lake. So, and it's spread, they take boats out on a lake with big arms that inject it into the water, and then it settles down to the bottom.
You want to add?
Sure. I'll just, alum is used in water treatment facilities. So like people said, it is a safe agent. And the application is not necessarily a magic bullet. When you treat a lake, you're pulling it, what may be suspended in the water column and sealing it, like we said, in the bottom of the lake, but that comes with a lot of study and data to look at what the inputs to that water body are, what additional phosphorus is coming in, and also core samples, drilling into the bottom of the lake to retrieve sediment to know exactly what those concentrations are, where the hot spots might be, so to speak.
Yeah. We have a lot of questions here, so I don't know. We'll start with, what do you know about in microplastics in the environment? Is that a concern with our water here?
Do someone want? I mean,
Let's all.
okay, let's all. I guess I'll just start to say there's a lot of different emerging contaminants of concern that we keep an eye on and that we you know, start to study, and microplastics is one of those. We haven't done anything in particular yet, but that's coming, I'm sure.
Yeah, I would add that, yes, there are a lot of different pollutants that are on the landscape that we see, and as a watershed district, and the work that we do typically revolves around water clarity and pollutant loads, that excess nutrient entering in clean water. Some of the things, we are more of a support mechanism. We get information, share it out to the public, connect them with the agencies that might be dealing with that. You may be familiar with mercury in fish. Well, who put that there? Well, that's atmospheric deposition that's coming from our power plants that are burning coal. It would be hard for a small localized unit of government to do anything there to really move the needle, if you will. But we're certainly well aware of those things and share that type of information.
I
This is
guess
the last
we
time
all
I'll
need to
say
say, no, I'm joking. I will add, the watershed, CRWD has begun monitoring microplastics within our watershed. Both, what are we finding in stormwater runoff? What are we finding in our lakes? And are our BMPs effective at removing microplastics? And this is very, please take this with it's limited information. We just started this a few years ago. It's a really expensive parameter to monitor for. We know that it is ubiquitous. It is found. There are a variety of sources, and we're talking about microplastics too. What we found from our monitoring data, that it is predominantly coming from the atmosphere. But we are seeing it in runoff, and some of those typical sources for microplastics in our runoff, tire shreds, degradation of tires. It's less, we think, we're not sure, but maybe less about the breakdown of plastic trash. We're not certain, but these are some of the things, we're starting to toy with and ask questions about. We have found, actually, we monitored the effectiveness of the Parkview Center School filters and their effectiveness of removing microplastics. We monitor what was coming in and then what was leaving. And we found some of the samples had higher levels at the outlet. So, is that because there's microplastics in the filters? This is something we need to do more investigation. I think there's a lot of work to be done here, but it's really expensive, we found, to monitor it on a per sample basis. So that's something we also need to balance, recognizing this is a much larger issue, that needs to be addressed and might be better handled sort of at a higher level.
Curious about how much of the grant monies are come from federal sources, and if you're worried about losing those federal sources.
I'll start, I guess. Right now, thankfully, we don't have any grants that are coming from federal sources. So that's the, I guess, easy answer to that question. We're fortunate to be in Minnesota, a state that has valued waters. Nick mentioned the 1982 Metropolitan Surface Water Act, but the original Watershed Management Act was from 1952. So we have a long history here. We have great state agencies that support it. We have the amendment, money that comes in for clean water funds as well. So we're doing okay personally in that regard.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. The only thing I would add is just we're mindful of it, knowing how it might trickle down at a local level. Is that going to be putting more pressure on state, county, local resources? And there may be, asking more of our citizens to fund those sort of basic fundamental services that our government needs to provide. And that comes first. I mean, So we're keeping an eye on it, but as right now, I feel like, saying just very fortunate that there's such a strong commitment on watershed management.
What types of things do volunteers do?
Well, at Rice Creek, we have a citizen advisory committee, as all watersheds are obligated to have. Our citizen advisory committee reviews our grant applications, making recommendations to the board. They become stewards, if you will, for the watershed itself, learning about the different programs that we have, and then they're out in the community testifying to that good work and participating in the events that you've seen.
Maybe one thing I will highlight as I mentioned the Adopt a Dream program. This is something that's, like I mentioned, been around for 10 years. It was piloted in Capital Region Watershed Districts. So we're seeing that program grow. I think that's sort of a low-hanging fruit. It's right out your doorstep. You've got a storm drain, and adopting it and making sure it's clear of trash, organic matter, other debris, so it doesn't get into the storm sewer pipes. Helps protect water quality, but it also helps to mitigate flooding as well. We want to keep those clear. So adopting your storm drain, I think it's adopt-a-drain.org. And you can see if your storm drains have been adopted. The other thing I would offer, we are having neighborhood groups in our watershed district organize community cleanups to not only pick up trash, but also to collect leaves that you find along your gutter line, because and other organic matter, because that's a source of phosphorus. So, picking up that is really beneficial to our lakes and streams.
I should ask our volunteer extraordinaires over there if they have anything to add, but we do also hold volunteer events to do planting projects. We have a long-standing relationship with the Master Gardener program, so we solicit a lot of help from them as well in doing plantings and maintenance of rain garden work as well.
What about drought?
What about it?
What about it? Clearly, the extreme events, whether it's high water or drought, are impactful on our watersheds. One of the things that we're looking at specifically is the plants we're choosing when we're doing planting projects, when we're doing our restoration work, making sure we're choosing plants that can tolerate both circumstances or can survive through those periods of time and come back to us when it's when we're past it and on to the next round. Yeah, I guess that probably would be the biggest thing for us.
I have two thoughts in regards to that. One, I mentioned the public drainage systems. These warmer winters and such, we've seen a large increase in beavers, which block the ditches, which they are a, what do they call it, a king species? Keystone species, right? Because of the habitat that they create. Thank you. On the other hand, these public drainage systems are the sole outlet. When you think about the storm sewer systems, at least in Rice Creek, these storm sewer systems, water comes off the road, goes in the catch basin, pipe gets bigger and bigger. Where does that eventually go? Could be directly into a lake, but in Rice Creek, it goes into the public drainage system. So unfortunately, we have to remove those beaver dams and the beaver for that matter. Beyond that, we also have a good number of stormwater reuse where the stormwater ponds act as a vessel again to hold water that is then irrigated out in neighborhoods or at a park system. And when you have a drought, everybody needs water, but they'll quickly diminish what's available, as you know.
There's a couple of specific project questions. I don't know if this falls in the same district, but I'm gonna name them both right now, so we don't get me up here too much. First one is the Rice Street Hodgson Road construction project, and wondering if there's any water purification going on there. And the other one is Lake Gervais in Little Canada, just wondering about the health status of that lake.
Yes, those are both in Ramsey-Washington, mostly. Did you have any other Rice Street, Hodgson? So Rice Street and Hodgson Road in the Little Canada area is, yes, there is a very large treatment system at the church, and I'm gonna forget the corner, right on Hodgson and
Near County F.
yeah, near County F, thank you. Yes, so there is a very large filtration system, and there's some above ground and below ground. So similar to what Anna and Nick showed for those big pipes, there is some of that as well underground in that location. I know there is more treatment further upstream too, but I'm not as familiar with it as that big system. And then Lake Jarvis was the other question. Lake Jarvis is one of our cleanest lakes, but it does have some shallow areas that have a lot of plant growth, and so I know that can get some algae on the top of the lake in some areas. So if you see that, you might think it's doing terrible, but it's actually that's some good plant growth that catches that filamentous algae on top of the surface. But the water clarity is very clear. It's a very deep lake, and so that has the benefits of that as well. But it's doing good. It brings in, so Coleman Lake comes in through Jarvis, and so there is some cleaning of the water, and then our Lake Phelan system is a very, very clean system. So.
What happens to the dredged material, and can it be cleaned, rehabbed, whatever, brought back in?
I mentioned the Jones Lake project and the dredging and what we had done at Hanson Park and also Muir Pond. All those early work includes core samples. So you lay out a grid across the surface and do core samples to see what the sediment contains. Unfortunately, it is often polluted to a degree where it does have to be landfilled. That is extremely expensive. And then the range of pollutant load can vary. Some of it can be land applied or side cast or capped on site, if you will.
Can you speak to the rain garden use in our cities and as far as resident buy-in, goals for expansion?
I'll start us off to say we have strong relationships with our municipal partners. So if they're going to undertake a road project, we often engage with them. Not everybody can have a rain garden. If you're at the top of the hill, that's a little problematic. So we identify key spots. It's followed up with soil conditions. Do you have clay, which wouldn't work, or sand where it will allow the rain garden to function, or maybe somewhere in between where we have under drains and such to move the water through the filtering landscape.
Yeah, I would say I've been with the district for 17 years, and I've really seen an evolution with our city partners as well as the county, and in partnering with the watershed organizations and doing it early on, getting us at the table, and street reconstruction planning, seeing, their 5-year plans is really helpful, and where they're on board to even provide in-kind labor or some of that construction work to put a curb cut, you know, where it is appropriate for collecting the rainwater. So it's, you know, and which is a great way, you know, leverage these opportunities and be more cost effective in building them. And as we get more and more of them, I think residents are coming to us, even if there isn't a street reconstruction project now, and wanting to build one, so we can help them provide some technical assistance, make sure it makes sense, see if there are any major conflicts above and below ground, and bundle some of these boulevard rain garden construction projects. So at the district, I know we have over 500 boulevard rain gardens throughout our watershed.
What is the Save Snail Lake program?
Who asked that question? No, I'm just kidding. It's a neighborhood effort, Snail Lake up in Shoreview. There's the redevelopment of and someone's gonna know what was Union, was it the Union Gospel site, mission site? So when they left, there's redevelopment plans there, and there was concerns about the number of units being placed on that site for redevelopment. It's right on the shores of Snail Lake, so there was concern of that. It's not something that we've been real involved with, but we're aware of. And rest assured that, you know, any redevelopment that happens has to come to us for review. They have to meet our rules. There's setbacks from the lake. There's buffer requirements. There's stormwater treatment requirements. There's a lot of work that goes into making sure that those developments don't have as negative an impact as they could if there were no rules in place. So we keep up on that, and we hear from residents, and work real closely with those developers to make sure that those things are in place before. And the city of Shoreview too, so they have their own rules and requirements, so everybody's keeping an eye on them for sure.
I think that brings up a very good point, that watershed districts do not have economic development authorities. Municipalities, they want to increase tax base, and there's nothing wrong with that or problematic about it. We come at it purely from a water resource view and what has to be done in conjunction with that. So unfortunately, or maybe it can definitely be a hard position to fight, if you will, or plea for both sides. I want economic development, but I'm gonna need to limit it at the same time. In a watershed district is a third party or an adjacent party that's charge is to make sure those water resources are protected.
Wetland to upland, what does this mean? Why is it done?
Wetland to upland.
Wetland to upland, I don't know what it is and why it's done.
Wetland, in the simplest, and you might imagine, ducks, open water, cattails. There are 3 parameters that define a wetland. It's the presence of hydrology. It doesn't have to be every day of the year. Hydric soils, which means soils that you would want to wear rubber boots in, the mucky kind of stuff that holds water, and vegetation that has adapted to live in those. When plants get their feet wet, when you water your house plant too much, it expires, as does the cash crop of corn, right? You can't have it wet too long. And Mother Nature has provided cattails and many other plants, many other plants that are able to pull oxygen out of the air. They're okay with their feet wet and to draw the oxygen down into their root system and tolerate that. So that's the wetland side. And as you go through the gradation out of that, you come to a landmass that is typically dry, and we call that upland. It's not wet.
Well, we're out of time, but thanks everybody for asking such great questions. Really wanted to thank all of you for coming again. It was wonderful. Also want to thank Roseville Library for hosting us again, as well as Do-Good Roseville for co-sponsoring. And thank you for our water stewards that showed up today, Linda Nielsen and Lee Bauer. Thank you for sharing your things with us too. Sorry, I don't know.
Just a couple of quick announcements for leaguers. There's never any rest for leaguers. So on Monday, April 28th in the afternoon, the State League is organizing a lobby day at the Capitol. And believe me, there's lots to lobby about. So if you are interested in this, if you could contact Sherry, is Sherry here? Oh, Sherry Hood in the back to maybe organize driving down together or something like that. And we'd like to wear purple shirts along with like Duluth League is bringing in a bus, 1 or 2 buses of people for this. So this is kind of a big deal. So that's April 28th, Monday afternoon. And then our next event is our annual meeting, which is May 6th. And that's a Tuesday evening. And that's going to be at Little Canada City Hall, right across from the Watershed. The Watershed District, which we have used for meetings in the past. And that evening is featuring a conversation with the judge, another second Ramsey County Second District Judge, Judge Mark Ireland will be there, and one of our league members is putting together some questions for him. So keep that in mind, leaguers. That's May 6th, Little Canada City Hall. Thank you so much for coming.